All right, well, I have 504, so if we get our last member joining later, we'll make sure to catch him up. But thank you, everyone, for re-attending our offering of the Why Not NGSS, looking at the NGSS, the Next Generation Science Standards, to strengthen science teaching and learning. Apologize for the inconvenience and some of the errors we made the first time with offering this, but I hope it goes really well today. So first thing I'd like to do is introduce our two presenters today. Myself, I'm Ryan Timmons. I work with the Dana Center, and this is Shelley Ledoux here. Hello, Shelley. Shelley will be talking a little bit later more about the science standards, and I'm going to take this moment to walk you through some of the basics of the program. Spencer, I know that you've had some experience with this program already, but Allison, if there's anything you have questions on, please just kind of address those to me or raise your hand if you'd like, and I can help you work through any challenges or difficulties with the software here. But first things first, let's talk about the Dana Center itself. If you're not familiar with us, we collaborate with local and national organizations to strengthen our mathematics and science education. We do this by focusing on equity and access for all students, and of course by promoting college and career readiness. Now, there are some ways that we do this, and one of those first things is promotion of high academic standards. These are things that I don't think are going to be hard to refute, because high academic standards do result in high performance for students. We look at building capacity within those systems that we participate in and work with. We look at research and practice, and of course innovation. And this is just one of those examples of innovation for us, where we are trying something new and seeing how it works with those that we'd like to help out and work with some of the standards and some of the mathematical and science content areas. So first things first, here is an image, and this is going to be our Zoom program. On the bottom you see a tab for a lot of the functionality that we'll be looking at today. First thing I'd like for you to look at is the mute function. This will be a thing that as you are going in and out of breakout rooms, or as you are participating by raising your hand, we're going to ask that you keep it muted for most of the session, but as you would like to or are called on, unmute yourself and then add to the conversations. Right next to that is going to be our video icon. Again, we ask that you leave that icon on. We like to see you, like to see that you're participating, and be able to really communicate and connect with you. But if there is a moment where you need to turn that off, that's where the button is, right there. This program has functionality that's a lot like kind of like a Facebook, and so there is a chat feature. As I demonstrated earlier, you have to be kind of careful as to how you send those messages out, but for the most part we ask that you reserve chats for spaces where you have a question that may not be addressed in the session at large, but need to get some help or have a question answered that's maybe a slightly off topic. If you would just mind putting that in the chat feature there for us, please. I'll be monitoring that for most of the time. And again, right there, that little blue area is where you can see who you're talking to. So for the most of the session, you're going to be seeing this PowerPoint and our smiling faces. If you happen to need to move that area for the faces, the videos, you can. If you need to get around your computer to open a program or do something else, it is something you can move around. At the top, you'll see an area that will mention who's sharing screens and who's in charge, who's running the program. The black button will allow you to exit full screen if you need to get back and forth between other programs, which we will be doing throughout the session. So you'll also see several times throughout this meeting that there will be a little button pop up that says attend a breakout session. Now what this is going to be a side room where you and your team will go over and have a conversation. It's a space for you to really be able to connect in a smaller setting and then be able to come back into our larger group and share with us your thoughts and feedback for the prompts that we're sending you off with. So you'll see that pop up. I will give you some advice about the breakout sessions, is that when you come back into our main session, you won't be muted. So I might be muting you if that's left on, just so that we don't get any feedback in our microphones. And also in the breakout sessions, we have them timed, and I try to give out global messages to let everybody know how much time is left. But occasionally we do run where the conversations are going really well, but we do need to move on with the sessions. So you'll see a little message pop up that says the breakout room is closing within a minute, and you can finish your conversation and either join us, or it will automatically click you out of your session and put you back in the main room. So I just want to give you a heads up on that one. Once you're in your breakout rooms, again, the functionality kind of looks similar. There's the microphone and the audio, but you'll also have this little button, Ask for Help. This will let me know as your host to pop into your room and answer any questions, or maybe give some guidance as to how the conversations are going, or what were the prompts before you left the main room. And because sometimes the chat feature does not carry over into that side room. And we have Leave Room. If you end your conversation early and need to get back to our main chat room, then this is the button you're going to click. Be careful that you're in the side room, your breakout rooms, and you're going back to the main room. If you click that red button in the main room, it will actually log you out of the session. So just be careful as to when you're clicking out. Again, there's also a chat feature here. This is a way that you can record some of the ideas that you have within your group. It does sometimes carries over, sometimes does not. So you may want to either copy and paste that if you're going to use that for notes, or if you're thinking any links that we send you in the main room, those won't necessarily carry over into the breakout room. So try to click anything before you exit that main room and go into your breakout room. All right, so one of the first things we'd like for you to be able to do is actually go into a breakout room, and you're going to be able to then introduce yourselves and talk a little bit about where you work, your primary roles, and why you are attending today's session. So we're going to give you about 5 minutes to do that, and you're going to see those breakout rooms pop up here in just a moment. I'm going to put Tina. Hi, Tina. We're going to put Tina into a breakout room here, and then we'll send you off. Are there any questions before I send you into the breakout rooms? No? All right, well, great. Once you're in your rooms, talk about, introduce yourselves, and then talk about where you work, your primary roles, and why you are attending today's session. We'll see you back in 5 minutes. All right. They're off.
Did you put Sarah in a room?
I did, just so it make it even.
All right. Do you want me to go ahead and share now so it's a smooth transition? Okay. I gotta make my thing bigger. I made it small. Now I can't see the share screen thing. There we go. Okay, you see it?
Yes, I can see it.
So when you're sharing screen, it only lets you see 2 of the participants.
There's only 2 of us because we're the only 2 in this room.
Because we're the only 2.
Sorry. It does only do 4 though, which is kind of annoying.
Yeah, duh. I guess I knew that.
Early when we were on, I was like, oh my gosh, I have to put the poll questions in there.
Uh-oh.
But they're in, they're fine.
Okay, don't scare me.
Well, it's so annoying. You have to put them in each time into separate rooms as opposed to having the bank.
Yeah.
It's to keep putting in each time. So every time we've switched rooms, it's like, oh my God, I have to do all this again.
Did you look at the time?
Yeah, I have a timer set.
Okay.
They have 2 minutes, 2.5 minutes.
Okay. Can they leave the chat room anytime?
Yes.
So if they finish early, they can come back.
Yes, they can. Okay, I'm initiating the 1 minute close now, so they should be coming back. And there isn't many, so it's only 6. So they've been given 60 seconds. They don't have to come back right now. There you are, Tina. Hello, good to see you.
Are we waiting on one more?
Nope, that's everyone.
Allison?
Oh, wait, yeah. How'd she manage to come? Not come back?
Allison's computer locked up while we were in small groups, so she may have logged out and trying to come back in.
Okay.
Yep. Okay.
All right. Well, let's go ahead and keep going and talk about like these early slides and get moving. So, okay. Hi everybody. Like Ryan said, I'm Shelly Ledoux, and I'm going to be talking to you about the NGSS today. So, here are a few things to keep in mind as we work together in this online environment. Some of these things Ryan already covered. But to make sure the sound quality is best for everyone, be sure your audio is muted when you're not talking. And then if you do have a question, use that chat feature, and Ryan will be watching that. So you can send a chat directly to Ryan if you need our attention for some reason. Make sure you speak clearly and to the camera, and try to minimize any background noise that might be going on. We want to see you, like Ryan said during the presentation, but be sure to think about your actions while your camera is active, and feel free to turn your video off for a minute if you need to do that. All right, so we have a couple of learning expectations for our time together today. The first is to gain a better understanding of the intent and purpose of the Next Generation Science Standards and how they have the potential to improve teaching and learning for all students, which is especially important, right, for traditionally underserved populations who also deserve opportunities for upward economic mobility in our STEM-driven job market. We're also going to dig into the structure of the standards and look at how all of the components work together by engaging in a little bit of a science activity. All right, these are our group norms for this session, and they are about creating an environment where we can all learn from each other through collegial conversations today. These are especially important in this virtual environment, and like anything, you'll get out of this what you put into it, and Ryan and I hope that you engage fully, make some new friends, share your own expertise, and take away some valuable insights so that you can talk with your colleagues and make some informed decisions about NGSS instruction. All right, so during the session also, I may call on you to share your thinking, and if your answer is, I don't know, that's perfectly okay. We want to stretch your thinking today for each other as we explore the standards. All right, so we're going to start with a quote. So let me give you just a minute to read the quote shown on the slide here. All right, so we kind of like to know what your thoughts are when you consider what this quote says about the current state of science education in our country. So we're going to ask you to share your thinking in a format called Padlet. And Ryan is sending you a link in the chat box to our very first Padlet. And when you click the link, it will take you to a page that looks like this. If you don't see the page when you click the link, it might have popped up behind your current screen, and you might need to exit the full screen mode in Zoom to get to the Padlet. So when you get there, take a couple of minutes to reread the quote and describe some concerns that come to your mind on the Padlet, and you do that by clicking this pink plus symbol in the bottom corner of the page there. And your comments will be anonymous on the page, but we'll be able to see everybody's comments that they share. So go ahead and take a few minutes to do that.
Allison, if you have troubles with getting Padlet to work on your iPad, you can type into chat the your answers and your responses, and I can read them aloud for you if you'd like.
A regular PC because the other one went flat. My daughter came in and fixed it and went out again. Sorry.
Okay.
So I should be able to use this directly, shouldn't I? Yeah.
All right, I like that someone wrote that science and engineering are a great equalizer. You know, so giving people access to those skills is what gives them access to the job market and then opportunities for upward mobility. So I like that you're excited about including engineering in science education. And then someone else talks about needing a diverse workforce in science and engineering, but we're filtering students out. So why is that? And then another person talks about, you know, hopefully rigorous and relevant curriculum with best instructional practices can be part of the solution to that problem. So I like all of your comments. And someone says, I wonder what this means for women in particular, right? So women are often a minority in science and engineering fields as well. So they're considered an underserved population as well. Good point, good point. All right, so you all have highlighted some issues that are important to address, and the NGSS were developed in part to address these issues and level the playing field, like you said, in science education so that more students are graduating college and career ready. All right, in just a minute, I'm going to ask you to use one of our Zoom tools to respond to a question, the raise hand tool. So if you click the participants, a box will pop up and you will see the raise hands tool as shown here on the screen. So take just a minute, locate that, and I'm going to ask you to use it shortly. All right, if you have trouble, let Ryan know. All right, so the NGSS are not a new name for the same old science standards. They're based on a new vision of what excellent science education should look like and sound like. And that new vision is described by several important shifts, and we have some of them listed here. So as you read over and consider these shifts that are shown on the slide, what are ways that you will think, or that you think that they'll improve opportunities for students to excel in science? So we'd like to hear from you. So if you have some thoughts, use that raise hand tool and I'll call on you and you can unmute yourself and share your thinking with the group. All right, Spencer, go ahead. Tell us your thinking.
So the interconnected nature and performance-based and the core ideas, conceptual understanding are a lot of things that kind of go across the STEM habits of mind, which I've been thinking a lot about content itself and how little content matters 10 years after the fact, but the habits of mind and the deeper critical thinking and the lifelong learner things that a lot of teachers value but still struggle to communicate. I think a lot of those things can help develop scientists, even for like English majors and things like that. But those habits of mind and critical thinking and the interconnected nature and how it connects with other things, I think have a lot of value for excelling in science and just life in general as well, even for non-scientists.
Yeah, thank you, Spencer. That's really important. So a lot of what we're going to see as we explore kind of the nature of the NGSS and how they're put together is, all about those critical thinking skills, those problem solving skills, and how those are cross-disciplinary. So Spencer's exactly right. That's a great point. Tracy, what do you have to share with us?
So just a couple of things, and my thinking is mostly at the elementary level. Focusing on that smaller set of core ideas is really going to help the elementary teachers, I think, because fewer concepts gives them the opportunity to go deeper, knowing that they have limited time for science because of the focus on math and ELA in elementary. So that's going to, I think, be a good opportunity for teachers to really find some and make some connections for kids with the science. Also, the idea of integrating science and engineering, I think that's a wonderful idea simply because the engineering gives kids a chance for practical application of the science they're learning. So those two ideas I think are really going to cause some changes in what happens in elementary science for sure.
Yeah, thank you, Tracy. Great points. I agree with you. Like if we can provide students with a really strong foundation in core content and then send them off to post-secondary education with strong skills, right? We're setting them up for success instead of what we're doing now, and we're only being successful with 36% of our students when they graduate high school. So those are all great points. Thank you very much. So the NGSS are written in such a way, right, so as to highlight the interconnected nature of the knowledge and skills that students explore, just in the way Spencer described for us. And in this way, they can build on their prior learning while they're anticipating their future learning as well. The fact that the NGSS are written as performance expectations is really important for educators because that clarifies how students need to demonstrate their understanding. A lot of times with traditional science standards, we don't know exactly what students should do. These standards also focus, like Tracy said, on a smaller set of disciplinary core ideas, and they're organized in a logical progression from grade to grade that grows in sophistication as students move from elementary to middle to high school. Additionally, as you guys spoke about too, engineering is intertwined with the science in NGSS, and this speaks again to the importance of preparing students for the current and future job market. All right, so let's do some science. So I'm going to play a short video for you. I'm going to play it twice so you can be sure and see what's happening. Ryan is also going to send you a link for the video via chat so you can watch it on Vimeo if you need to, and then have it for reference in an upcoming activity as well. So the setup that you're going to see here is known as a coupled pendulum, and I want you to look for patterns in the motion that you see as you watch the video. It's only about 30 seconds long, so I'm going to show it twice again. So here's the first time. Remember to look for patterns in motion. All right, I'm going to start it over one more time just to be sure everybody saw what was going on there. All right. So let's be sure everyone's on the same page here. And I'm wondering if someone might raise their hand and just kind of describe what you noticed in the video. Tell us what was going on. Okay, Spencer, go ahead.
So one of the pendulum was pulled back, like putting energy in the system, and then it started moving. And then after, I couldn't quite get the countdown, but it looked like something like 2 full swings. The other one started speeding up, and then there was some kind of node where it basically froze, stopped moving, where the other one gained speed, and then it went through one rotation, started transferring some energy back to the other one. So it looked like they were kind of alternating, going into a node, or like just not moving at all. And it seemed like it lasted almost the same exact time for both of them, alternating back and forth.
Okay. So hopefully everybody saw that similar motion. Remember, you have the link to the Vimeo video if you need to talk about it during this upcoming activity. So, so we've had an opportunity to, make some observations, and we're going to put you back in your breakout groups. And in your group, we'd like you to create an explanation for the phenomenon that we just observed, right? Ryan's going to send you another Padlet link as well. And when your group is ready, we want you to type your explanation into the Padlet. All right, so as you work with your group to create an explanation, I want you to think about what students in the grade level that you work with might notice. Right? This activity has multiple entry points for grade bands, so it's okay if you're coming at this from an elementary, middle, or high school perspective, right? Spencer talked about nodes, so if you don't know what that is, that's perfectly fine, because this students in elementary school can make some observations here and make some do some important thinking about this. So you're going to have 10 minutes in your breakout group. Remember, you're going to type an explanation for this phenomenon that we observed into the Padlet. All right, does anybody have questions? Okay, so we'll see you guys back here in 10 minutes.
If you do have time at the end, you can come back early and we can transition on with our session too. So if your 10 minutes is too long, go ahead and come back. Here's your rooms.
So just so you know, my computer fan is going ballistic.
I can't hear it, so you're good there.
Very hot. Did you look at the time?
Yeah, I have a timer going.
Okay. Who do you think is going to type the explanation for one group?
I wasn't sure if you were gonna stop that, like not use the Padlet because you asked like raise your hand.
Mm-hmm. Well, no, so when we did it in the run through, remember that some people didn't pick up on the pattern when they watched the video. So I added that little, can somebody kind of describe the pattern that they saw or the motion that they saw? He just went a little too fast. Which was okay.
So loud. There we go. Okay, that's good. New phone, new ringtones. That last one was really obnoxious.
Group 2 is getting started.
How do you know it's group 2?
It
Oh,
says,
that's group 2. There you go. You need like 6 screens. to like keep everything spread out, but then it's also extremely
I've just got
difficult.
it all on top of each other, and I'm trying to go back and forth, but
Yeah.
especially when you're the presenter, because you have a chat box, you have the participant box, you've got the pictures, I've got my bullet point notes that I'm trying to remember everything I want to say, I've got the PowerPoints.
Yeah, you really can't read notes in this. I mean, you just really cannot.
Mm-mm.
Way too difficult.
Oh, I'm tired. Didn't sleep well last night. I've basically been up since 1:30.
Oh no.
Hopefully that means I'll sleep well tonight.
I might pop in to see what the conversation's like, because
Okay.
I'll pop in this one, see how they're doing. But that's breakout room 2. Maybe I'll join 1 since I don't see anything from them.
Above that.
I don't see a bar. I just see the strings tied to each other.
You see the red? Is what color is it? Is it red?
Yeah, I thought that was just string. Is that an actual?
That is string. I'm calling it a bar.
Oh, okay.
I'm calling it a bar.
Okay.
But it's that thing that's so basically what I'm saying is that even if you take that one off, you still get the switch because it's still going to get that transfer. It's still about the transfer back and forth.
But how are they attached without that string in the middle?
There's on that. Oh, okay. The one that you see that string. If above that, you notice how you have string extending above that string in the middle? Those are attached to something.
Oh, so you're saying like if there's a stick or whatever that those are tied to?
Yeah, if there was a string up there that they were tied to, you'd still get an exchange because it's still really about the transfer of energy across. Back and forth.
So if it was so you're saying without that attachment in the middle, if we just did the same thing like this and did it hanging down from a stick, it would have transfer like this?
No, I don't know about a stick because I've seen it with a string across the top without the second string that also supports. But we still don't have an explanation. So I guess if we had to come up with a simple explanation, what would we say today?
I think we would say it's a transfer of energy via wave propagation.
I'd agree with that.
That works for me.
All right.
But
I'm
that's
just checking on y'all. Make sure everything's going all right.
yeah, good.
Right.
Okay, thanks,
How much more
Ryan.
time do we have?
About 5 minutes.
Oh, okay, we're in good shape.
Okay, great.
Okay, thanks.
Thanks.
So conceptually, I'm good with that.
Well,
Well, Barbara's in with I was trying to put them in breakout rooms and start the session at the same time, and Barbara is in the room with Spencer, and
are they arguing?
they were having a discussion about sticks and strings, and they were more about the setup than the properties or what was going on. So
Well, that's okay.
it's okay, but I wasn't quite sure that they were really right in some of their discussion.
That's okay too.
No, I meant like there was talk about there would still be transfer if the string hadn't been there, and then there was like, well, what about a stick? Would a stick still transfer? And
Yeah. Well, that's okay. Those are all good things to explore.
okay, well, that's what they were talking about. So
Yeah, that's all good. So that actually is a really good discussion. So the cross string at the top.
yeah, they were talking about what if you removed that? Would there still be transfer?
No, because there would be no connection between
Right.
them.
And
Right.
some people were making an assumption there was something above that was still connecting them, like a stick. And then,
Mm-mm.
well, anyway, that's what they were talking about.
Well,
It
and
seems
then
like she's in high school.
yeah, and then the other thing is, if it was a stick, it would still transfer, but not as quickly, and not as much, because there's less elastic potential in the stick.
Yeah.
So that's all good.
Okay.
It's okay.
And the other two, I know Tracy and Sarah know, are, I put them with Allison, so that's a good match.
Where's Tina?
Tina's with Spencer and Barbara.
Oh, and she's not getting a word in edgewise?
No, well, no, Tina's not getting nowhere. But Sarah's, Tracy, and Allison, I think, are a good combination.
Okay.
So there's about 2.5 minutes left.
Okay, they're not putting anything up yet. Can you send them? Oh, here we go. Oh, we have one that says test.
Test works. Group 2, a person. Test is gone.
Person transfers kinetic energy. Oh, so when the push.
Yeah. Like I said, they're going for full on.
Mm-hmm.
Bob.
It was a Bob.
Bob.
Around the office, I told you we've been calling it my brass balls.
Yep. This is recorded, in case you're wondering.
That's okay. Did you get the email from Lauren today?
From who?
From Lauren about the service tomorrow?
Yeah.
Got a little typo in it.
I didn't read it because we can't do the service thing, so.
You should read it.
Okay. All right.
All right, a person transfers kinetic energy to the left bob. As the left bob moves, it transfers energy along the string to the right bob, which begins to move. When the right bob moves, the left bob slows and briefly stops. Then the right bob transfers. Okay.
So there's a lot of transfer going on there.
Yeah. Come on, group 2.
And group 1 still hasn't posted anything.
Yeah, not yet. How much time do they have?
1 minute.
Who's in group 1?
Barbara, Spencer, and Tina. Spencer has used Padlet before. Barbara's used Padlet before.
Mm-hmm.
And they both possess enough knowledge to be able to add something.
Do we have any more? So Barbara, did your group put an explanation in to Padlet?
Well, we came up with an explanation, but we didn't put it into Padlet. Okay. We were too busy coming up with the explanation.
All right, I'm going to close the rooms here.
Okay.
Okay.
Barbara, can you
Rest
click
of
the
our
Padlet
people.
link and type in there?
Can I what? Want me to type it in?
Or I'll just
Like
let
I
you
was supposed
share it. I'll let you share it verbally.
Okay. Artina can share it.
Okay.
She's under the bus. You know how that is.
All right, Tina, your group didn't type into the Padlet, so I'm going to ask you if you would share kind of the gist of the explanation that you guys talked about. Would you, when everybody gets online, will you unmute yourself and share with us? Don't forget to unmute.
Can I just have the link to the Padlet?
Oh,
Again?
sure.
Okay.
Go ahead. That other group is really working their explanation there.
Oh, we're back in the main room now. I think we're okay.
Welcome back, Allison.
Deep in conversation.
Yeah. Okay, do we have everybody? I think we're all back. Okay. All right. So group 2, you guys really talked a lot about several different things. You talked about energy transfer. You talked about kinetic energy and potential energy. I see some references to heat energy and friction and energy leaving the system. You guys got really detailed in your explanation. And it looks like group 1.
We didn't write anything. We were talking the whole time.
Yep, Spencer, Tina's adding that in for you right now. So she says it looks like you guys really talked about energy transfer and wave propagation as in your explanation as well. So very interesting, very interesting. All right, so let's keep going here, and we're going to kind of unpack the understandings that were important in this activity here. Okay, so we're going to use a new feature. I'm going to ask you to respond to some polls and some questions that I'm going to pose. Ryan's going to post the poll results for us so we can kind of surface our collective understanding and our collective thinking as a whole group. All right, so here's the first question. So what science concepts can be used to describe this phenomenon? So go ahead and choose the answers that are a best fit in the poll that Ryan's sharing with you. We'll wait just a second for some results. Ryan, am I missing it? Okay. Oh, here we go. Okay, so it looks like everybody picked energy, and then equal amounts of you guys picked the other options as well. So if you picked all of these, you'd be correct, right? We said that this activity had multiple entry points. So you can talk about forces like gravity or the pushes and pulls that happened that caused the patterns of motion that we observed. You could talk about the kinetic and potential energy transfers or conservation of energy. Even some of you guys got into talking about wave propagation as well, which is pretty high level. So it depends on what grade your students are in that you're working with, you know, what that explanation is going to look like. So all very interesting. So we're going to move on to the next question now. So what are some ways students might engage with this content? So Ryan's sharing another poll with you. So click all of the ways you think would be appropriate for students to engage in this conversation. All right, so here's our results again. So again, any of these practices would be ways students could work to develop an understanding of that coupled pendulum motion. I like that everybody picked engaging an argument from evidence, right? So you're watching what's going on and you're really making your case for what you saw and backing that up with evidence there. And then planning and carrying out investigations as well, right? So students may want to mess around with that setup and see what happens if they change it a little bit. Very good, very good. All right, one more question. Okay, so what are some broad ideas that might help students make connections and organize their learning? So go ahead and make some choices here. All right. So again, all of the above, looking for patterns might be an early entry point into the activity for very young students. And then again, students can talk about the energy and matter relationships that they see. Stability and change could come into play. You know, what would happen if you introduce some kind of change into the system? How would that change the pattern, right? And also cause and effect relationships, right? Why is that happening? Very good, very interesting. All right, so let's look at how the NGSS organizes these ideas of content, practice, and connections that we just talked about here. All right, So these are the disciplinary core ideas or the content in the NGSS, and they're organized into 4 domains: physical science, life science, earth and space science, and engineering and technology. These domains are the same for K-12. So that doesn't mean that students are rehashing the same material year after year, right? Students are going to grow in their understanding of each of these core ideas as they build and grow in sophistication from elementary to middle to high school. All right, so as you look at these domains and core ideas shown here on the slide, what's familiar to you and what is new? Allison, would you like to share your thinking with the group? Go ahead and unmute yourself and tell us what you think.
Sorry, I disappeared for a few seconds to say goodbye to my son-in-law. What I still find difficult is what I said earlier on, that the integration of some concepts can be difficult. And I would find in this case with the pendulum and the energy and other concepts that are being added in, you could actually do it from 3 of these: physical science, earth and space science, or engineering and technology. It would depend such a lot on the skills of the teacher, that what I can see happening on your list servers is that more and more places are making a common curriculum for a large district, and so you may end up with a teacher that doesn't know how to talk about energy or waves. I'm not sure quite what you're expecting, but yeah.
Well, no, so Allison, I think you really surfaced some important points there, right? So teachers are going to need training on some of these new concepts and the way that these standards are organized, right? So you brought up, you made a connection between the activity that we just did, the couple pendulum, and some of the content that's listed in these domains here, right? Like energy and physical science, and even engineering and technology. So those are good connections to make. But when you look at this, we should see that the content here is very similar to content presented in traditional science standards, right? Engineering, of course, is new for most of us that teach science. But most of this content, it hasn't changed a lot, right? But the way that it's organized may look a little bit different. All right, let's dig a little bit deeper and then talk about how students engage with content. So this slide here lists the science and engineering practices, and these describe ways that students engage as scientists and engineers in their efforts to understand content, right? So as you look at this list, right, these are the same for K-12 students. Why do you think that is? Why do you think these practices are the same across the K-12 curriculum? Tina, would you like to share your thinking with the group? Did we lose Tina?
Yeah, it looks like she's frozen.
Okay. All right. How about Barbara? Could you share your thinking?
Express your question again for me. I'm sorry.
Sure. So the science and engineering practices are the same for a K-12 curriculum, right? So why do you think that is? Why do you think these don't change from year to year?
Because this is really about how students are actually engaging with the science. It's, I hate to use the word skill, but we talk about kids gaining certain skills that'll actually carry them throughout. And these are actually practices or things that students need to practice every year if they're going to do them and do them well and make them an integral part of all of their learning in science. And each year, I think that each year I know that it has to become more sophisticated, it has to go deeper, but it is still the same kind of thinking that students need to actually engage with.
Yeah, thank you, Barbara. So you're exactly right. So while many of these practices seem very familiar, right? collectively, they provide a better description for us as educators of what we mean when we say inquiry learning, right? So gone are the days of teaching the scientific method, right, which really doesn't depict how scientists actually work. These practices actually flesh out the specific ways that we want to see students behaving as scientists or engineers. For example, just looking at practice number 1, asking questions and defining problems, right? That tells us that it's students who must ask the questions about the natural world that lead to investigations, and students who have to define the problems in order to go on and design solutions, right, through the engineering design cycle. So this is a shift from teacher-directed instruction to student-directed instruction. And the NGSS provides in the appendices some really good descriptions of what these look like at each grade band. So that's a good thing for us as educators to help us see clearly how students do grow, as Barbara said, in their sophistication with these practices over time. All right, so earlier I asked you to think about what broad ideas might help students organize their learning. So in the NGSS, these are specifically called out and known as the cross-cutting concepts. You can see them here, there's 7 of them. So we talked about a few of these in relation to the coupled pendulum activity that we did. And as you look at this list here, how do you think a focus on these cross-cutting concepts might impact learning over time? Spencer, do you have some thoughts you'd like to share with the group?
Sure, yeah. Some of this actually made me think back to the session that Tracy did not too long ago about the patterns, because I was coupled up with some elementary teachers, and they were like, "Oh, my students wouldn't think like this," or "Oh, it's going to take a lot of leveling to do some of these things." But I think that's kind of the point. Like again, it's kind of the habits of mind, and these things, when you can recognize patterns, a pattern at the level of like wave transformation is going to be different than noticing, hey, there's a square here, there's a square here, or this ladybug looks like this. And that may be different for a kindergartner, for a senior in high school. But I think that those are again, it's kind of the scientific thinking, and very much like what Barbara was saying, that may be more elegant or more or deeper, but that doesn't mean the conceptual thing is different, and they can cross-cut throughout. Like structure and function matters at 6th grade biology just as much as it does in AP anatomy and physiology.
Mm-hmm. Barbara, did you want to add on to Spencer's thinking there? Don't forget to unmute.
You know, I really agree with everything that Spencer said, and I really do want to just simply add to that the fact that what we have now is a changing environment. We're learning more every day. We're making more discoveries every day. So students are actually going to be facing problems that we don't have to deal with right now. We don't know what those problems are yet. We don't know what those discoveries are yet. So what we have to do is build in a process so that our students have a way of approaching new problems, so that they can actually, this should be a way of thinking, I have a new problem, what patterns do I see? And, oh, I have a new problems, what systems are at work, and how do these systems function? What's stable, what's changing? Is there a change in energy in the matter? What does the structure of this have to do with how, the way that it's working? That should be the way that our students think when they approach any problem. And if we can get them to have those kinds of habits of mind, they can take them into new problems, not simply regurgitate to us the answers to old problems that we've already found the solutions to.
Thank you, Barbara. Yeah, I love how you put that, how we don't know what our problems are going to be in the future, right? So we need to develop people who can think in ways that can solve those problems when they come up, right? So the cross-cutting concepts really are powerful themes that can serve as organizing elements of instruction. So rather than, traditional lesson planning that begins with the content, we might begin our planning with an appropriate cross-cutting concept. So if we consider the coupled pendulum, for example, we might first ask students to describe the components of the system that they're looking at, right? And then depending on the grade level, we could ask students to describe and explain the patterns in motion that they observe, or the energy and matter interactions, or how the system remains stable or changes over time. So we can use these cross-cutting concepts to guide our instruction in new ways. All right, so we've talked about disciplinary core ideas, practices, and cross-cutting concepts. And the NGSS, all three of these things together are known as the 3 dimensions of science. And the NGSS calls for the integration of these 3 dimensions of science. So again, the disciplinary core ideas, science and engineering practices, and cross-cutting concepts. And we'd like you to work with your breakout group one more time and discuss the implications of being intentional with your planning and integrating these 3 dimensions. So how is this going to be different from traditional ways that we plan for instruction? So we're going to give you, again, 10 minutes in your breakout groups, and we'll ask that you choose one person in your group to share out with the whole group when we come back together. So if that person, when we come back from breakout groups, we'll just use the raise hand feature. I'll call on you and you can share some important points from your conversations or some ahas and takeaways that you guys have from talking to each other. So again, you know, what are the implications from really being intentional with integrating all 3 of these dimensions in our instruction? All right, any questions? Okay, Ryan, I'll start the breakout groups and we'll see you in 10 minutes.
We also have a document that's available I put the link in the chat. That is linking to a Box account that has a PDF that has the previous 3 slides and this slide so that you have reference for having your discussions. You have your examples and your elements that you're discussing right now. So hopefully everybody gets that. If you don't, just send me a message and I'll help you get back to that. But it's in the chat now, and I'll send you off to your rooms.
Okay, see you soon. Thank you, Ryan.
Mm-hmm.
I forgot about that document. Sorry.
That's all right. No.
It's not on my bulleted list that I can see in this one little sliver of my screen that's free.
Yeah.
All right, Ryan, I have to take a super fast break, okay?
Go. Yep.
I'll just leave my camera on. I'll be right back. Okay, I'm back.
Okay.
We haven't heard Tina yet.
She briefly spoke.
Yeah, but only to say she didn't want to.
Yep. I'll pop into group 1, see how that group's doing.
Okay.
I've been into 2, so I'll try 1 now.
In general terms.
It's hard to say because there's a few things out that are quote unquote NGSS aligned,
Mm-hmm.
but I haven't spent a lot of time looking at resources, so it would be hard for me to say specifically what's out there. I know there's a few things out there for elementary that are trying to incorporate all three, and usually what ends up happening is tends to be more student focused, more hands-on, of course, but at the same time also trying to help kids develop their skills in discourse so that they can not only engage in investigations but talk about what they're learning and try to make sense of it in a collaborative way. Does that make sense?
Yeah. How are the resources mainly for the teachers then? And they would be introducing some of these ideas to the learners rather than the learners reading about them.
I think reading is in, let's see, I don't know exactly. You're probably thinking more about high school level.
Yes and no.
I think in the elementary, what we're seeing is more use of literature type books instead of textbooks.
Yeah.
So we're seeing connections there to the ELA. So they're reading more expository text that's not necessarily a textbook.
Mm-hmm.
But yet that doesn't come first. That comes after exploring and trying to make sense of, observing phenomena, trying to make sense of it. And as you're trying to make sense of it, then learning vocabulary that goes with it, reading about it. So more of a constructivist approach.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, building up the argument or building up the picture.
Yep.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. But my answer to the question would be centered around this cross-cutting concepts must be one of the hardest things to do. Make the most demands of the teachers.
I think what we're seeing when we do PD out in school districts, the elementary teachers tend to really latch on to those cross-cutting concepts.
Allison is from Iceland. She teaches in Iceland.
Did you notice the kid walking
Currently
in?
in Texas.
She's what?
Currently in Texas,
Ah.
visiting her daughter.
Did you notice the kid walk in behind her in his boxer shorts?
Could you see his boxer shorts?
Yeah, you could see him like from the neck down, and he was just wearing like boxer shorts.
That's hilarious. Well, it's recorded, so.
They could have been regular shorts, but like guys don't wear shorty shorts like that. It's, it was pretty funny.
Yeah. I got 2 minutes.
Okay. Oh.
They're having good conversations, but she's hammering Tracy right now.
Who is Allison?
Allison.
About what?
She's comparing these to the way they learn in Iceland.
Uh-huh.
And so she's asking a lot of like materials and resources and what's the intent and the focus. I mean, like, she's basically grilling her. it's not a conversation. It's like, well, how do you do this? Well, how do you do that? What do you think about that? Well, that's interesting. What about this? And Tracy's like, and Sarah's doing this.
I'm glad Barbara and Tracy are there. I'm sure that makes those conversations a lot better.
It would have been it would have been difficult to have somebody else there.
Mm-hmm.
So the group works, even if Barbara and Spencer and Tina's group is probably a little awkward.
So this is, I mean, not that we can have, a million facilitators in every session, but this is something to think about, right? If you have, like, you're the only one who can pop in and out of meetings though, right? Or out of break rooms.
I am as the facilitator. I've made you a co-host, but as the host, yeah.
Yeah, but if we could be popping in and out.
You called us back, right?
It's about done, yeah. I called you back now.
Okay. Just making sure.
I don't think you did.
Not yet. I mean, I just ended it, yeah.
Okay.
Tracy,
I thought I saw the little.
I put in, there was like 1 minute left or 2 minutes left, but.
Sorry about that.
That's okay. You're fine. No, you're fine. You're fine. I said you can come in early.
We weren't done though.
Oh.
That's my fault. Sorry, Sarah.
it is what it is.
Oh, good. Allison's wondering where we are.
I know, probably right.
She'll be back in 15 seconds.
All right.
Did y'all see the kid walk in boxer shorts behind Allison earlier?
Hon tar fick komma.
All right. It looks like everybody's back. And I see that Tracy, you're the spokesperson for your group with your hand up. So tell us a little bit about your conversation. What are some important points that you want to share with the whole group?
Okay, so we had a really good conversation, and I almost wish we had more time so that we could have talked through more of it. So one of the things we talked about implications for teaching is that it's going to require teachers to be really disciplined in their planning, in that they've got to constantly think about and add in all three of these different components into their planning, into their lessons. And some of this, depending on teachers and their experience, and some pieces may be really uncomfortable for them or new for them. Like Allison was talking about the cross-cutting concepts being a new idea for teachers that she works with in Iceland. So it's going to depend on level of experience and where teachers are coming from, their background, as to how easy or difficult this is going to be. And then in regards to learning, we talked about how it's going to be more student-centered, and that we've got to make sure that kids not just engage in science activities, but also learn to engage in science through discourse. And that's something that we as teachers need to be aware of, and make sure kids can do that, and provide scaffolds for kids to be able to engage in discourse so they can construct meaning. And so we talked a little bit about a constructivist approach to the learning, and how we need to be really intentional about that. Allison, did I get it all?
The creativity.
Can you add to that, please, Allison?
It came to my mind because of reading a paper recently where teachers mixed together a fairy story and using technology. And I thought and said to the teachers that actually you can't do this assignment unless you're really banking on the children being creative. And I would worry a little bit if we left out creativity too much in applying the ideas that are here.
Those are all great points, guys. Thank you very much for sharing. Yeah, I think creativity, I think the way that the NGSS are organized, and especially with the inclusion of engineering, right, that creativity is a big focus. I like that you guys talked about discourse as well, because if you read the language, just the simple language of the science and engineering practices, they really highlight a lot of ways that students can engage by talking to each other. So that's very interesting, nice connections. Barbara, you've been elected to share for your group. What are some of the high points from your conversation?
Okay, let me make sure I'm not am I muted?
No, ma'am, we can hear you.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Okay, we actually took a slightly different direction in our conversation. What we were talking about is the fact that if we're looking at implications for teaching and learning, we've got to understand that teachers are going to have opportunities to prepare for this. That this is not something that's just going to happen because we hand folks a new set of standards, that they need to understand the science more deeply, because when we talk about fewer, deeper, that means deeper. That means you need to know the science more deeply. So that's one aspect. The second aspect is for the teachers to actually even be able to understand what this three-dimensional instruction looks like. What does it look like when I have this type of integration in my classroom? What are the kids going to be doing? What am I going to be doing? Teachers have to have a chance to practice, so that this is something that as the leaders are as teachers, everyone's going to have to go into this understanding that this is a major shift in how we talk about teaching science, and that the professionals who are going to be delivering this instruction need to have the opportunity to prepare for that. The second thing we talked about is that it's different also for students in the classroom, because they're now approaching an environment that's very different than an environment they may have been in before. Just think about students who've been in this program, in a program for, let's say, the first 8 years of their lives, where you use a very traditional science program, and now you want to move to NGSS, where they're doing the questioning, they're doing the investigations, they're doing the planning. That's a major shift for our students as well as for our teachers, and we have to give them some opportunities to actually get into that. And I think the last thing we talked about is the fact that we have to make certain that we have aware of our resources, so that if there are things on websites or other resources that are helpful to us, that we need to make sure that we know where those are and then actually can access them. I think that got it. Did I miss anything, guys? All right.
All right. Yeah. So that idea of resources, Barbara, is really important, because for a couple of reasons, right? So first of all, are there well-aligned resources to the NGSS, right? And how do we access them and find them and use them in our classrooms? And that kind of goes hand in hand with that idea of teachers needing time to learn and practice the skill, right? But just because a resource says that it's aligned to the NGSS doesn't mean it really is, right? So teachers need a really deep understanding of just what you said. What does this instruction look like and sound like in the classroom, so that they can make informed choices about instructional materials. And then, just one more connection to what you said, about some of this is new for teachers, right? So to connect your conversation to the other group's conversation, Allison pointed out in her group that, the teachers in where she's from are not really talking about cross-cutting concepts. That would be an all new thing. And I don't think that's unique to Allison. I think that's unique for a lot of teachers. So it is going to take a lot of learning and time, and it's not going to happen overnight, right? So great conversations, guys, really great. All right, so we've kind of talked about so far how the three dimensions of science fit together and create more effective science teaching and learning, right? So I wonder what additional instructional information might inform our planning. So Ryan's going to share one more poll with you. There it is. So what is some additional information that might support instructional planning besides knowing the core idea, the practice, and the cross-cutting concept? So go ahead and submit your answers there. All right, everybody picked everything, right? definitely all of that information would be helpful to us. And the NGSS are organized in a way that additional information is actually available to us, right? So we can easily reference prior and future grade level or grade band learning. We can learn about the important math and literacy skills that support students' ability to access science content. So knowing all this, let's think about how we measure student success. So the NGSS ties together these 3 dimensions of science in what we call performance expectations. And a performance expectation is a guide for assessment. It tells us exactly how students should demonstrate their understanding. So it's a way for us to measure how well they've mastered the skills and the content that we want them to master, right? And all of these things together make up a standard, right? And each of these things is important in considering what instruction should look like. So a lot of times teachers will look only at the performance expectation and plan their instruction off of that, but they're missing a whole lot of other information that is important to support student learning. So what we want to do now is give you guys an opportunity to explore a performance expectation so we can kind of develop a common understanding of the structure of the document. So Ryan is sending you a link via the chat, and the link is going to take you to a middle school performance expectation that looks like the document here on the screen so that you can examine it more carefully. So when you open the document, you'll notice that I've added a little blue bubble here for you and asked you to look for some specific things. We're going to give you 5 minutes to have some individual time to just look over the document and take note of what you see. What do you notice about the headings, about color coding, organization, or the content of the document? And then we want you to be ready to share what you learn or any questions that you have when we come back. So I'm going to start a timer on the screen so that you'll know when we are ready to come together as a whole group. So if there are no questions and everybody has been able to access that link, we will take 5 minutes to look at the document.
The documents disappeared from my screen.
If you would see in the chat box, there's a link, and that will take you directly to it. She was sharing it from her screen.
Okay, yeah, right, hang on. Texas box,
Yes, ma'am.
the middle one.
Mm-hmm. Ends in GVRA.
No. Now I've got the slide with the dimension 1 up.
I'll send it to you directly.
Okay, thank you.
Are you able to get it now?
Are you sending it to me in the chat box?
Yes, ma'am.
I don't know what has happened. Because I did have it up and I saw all the squares and boxes and the headings.
We're here. I could just share my screen if you'd like.
Okay, thank you.
Can you see that now?
No. Let me see. I've got a Padlet and at the top, and the flippers that are still open. I've got Padlet, I've got write-in explanation, I've got 3 dimensions, I've got MSPS2.
Yes, that's it. That's correct. That's it.
Oh, there it is. Okay, great. Good, thank you.
Mhm.
All right, guys, let's come back together. Okay, so welcome back. So let's surface some of the important parts of the document so we're all on the same page. But does anyone have any specific questions or anything that they notice that they want to ask about or talk about with the whole group? Go ahead and raise your hand if you've got something you want to share. Okay, Spencer, go ahead.
I found it pretty hard to follow as a document, like not something I wrote. It seems like they were just filling out a form, and there doesn't really seem to be any flow from one thing to the other. They started with a standard, clarified, and then just kind of filled out everything else. So I had a real hard time following and going back and forth and understanding what was coming out of this.
Okay. All right. So you are not unique or alone in that feeling. A lot of times the first time people look at this document, they're like, what does all this mean? Right. So we're going to take a minute to kind of decode it. And it does take some time to get used to where everything is and how to find everything. So that is a common, issue that a lot of people have. Thank you for sharing that. I appreciate it. All right, so if nobody else has anything to share with the whole group, let's just take a look here. Whoops. All right. As we look at some of the parts of the document, the first thing maybe that you might notice is just the title. The title does give us some information about the broad topic that this standard belongs to. So this is kind of related to the coupled pendulum activity that we did earlier. So this one happens to belong in the topic of forces and interactions, right? If we look at the coding on the document, on this particular standard, the coding is MS-PS2-2. So what that means is that it's a middle school standard belonging to the physical science domain and it is the second disciplinary core idea within that domain, and it is the second standard within that core idea. So if this had been a high school standard that we'd chosen, it would say HS instead of MS. And if it were an elementary standard, it would say K1, 2, 3, 4, or 5 instead of MS. So otherwise, the coding follows the same convention. All right, so we see this coding in several places on the document. So let me give you a minute to notice all of those red underlines, right? So on the NGSS website, if you were to look up the standards, several standards are listed together on the same page. They're not singletons like the one that we're looking at now. So this additional coding lets you know where you need to go to make connections to the practices and the disciplinary core ideas and the cross-cutting concepts, as well as other greater course core ideas for the particular standard that you're studying, right? All right, so here at the top of the page, we see the language of the performance expectation. So the black text is that description that we talked about earlier of how students should demonstrate their understanding. And the red text gives us some additional information, right? So we have some additional clarification here. This information provides specific examples or important emphasis that we should make. We also see an assessment boundary here. So that gives us guidance about how deep we should go with students. Here in the middle of the document, we see these color-coded boxes that tell us which practice, core idea, and cross-cutting concept come together in the performance expectation. And then there's clarifying information in the box here that can guide our instructional decisions. Okay, and then just under the colored boxes, right, we have connections within and between grades and courses. So that tells us where to go to tease out the prior and future learning. And then finally, we have connections to math and literacy that can enhance learning and guide our planning for students as well. So that's a lot of information all together on one document. All right, so now that we have had a chance to kind of drink from the fire hose and have some understanding of what an NGSS standard looks like, we're going to give you guys about 10 minutes again in your breakout groups and ask that when you come back, you be ready to discuss the questions that you see on this slide. So again, choose someone in your group to be the spokesperson for your group, maybe someone who hasn't talked a lot yet, and have that person use the raise hand tool when we come back as a whole group. Ryan is going to put a link to these questions in the chat box so that you can see the questions while you guys are in your breakout groups and talking. So does anybody have any questions before we do this final breakout group? All right, so we will see you in 10 minutes.
Barbara and Spencer, Tina had to leave, so it'll just be the two of you in your group. I just wanted to make sure you weren't waiting on her. They're in.
Tina left right when I said maybe someone new should talk in your group.
She had typed to me and said that she had to go pick up her boys from school, so I won't say that she was the most engaged in group time here either, but.
No, I mean, she was sideways working on the computer the whole time. So, but you know, this could be like, she's heard all this before, right?
She asked for the slides already. Like when we first lost her, right 2 minutes before that, I thought she had left because she said, can we have access to these PowerPoint?
As a PDF.
Yeah, well, I wasn't that specific with it, but I did say, yes, once you take the survey, we'll give you the link for that. And she wrote at the end when she left, she said she hoped to collaborate with us in the future, so.
Do we know where she's from or where she works?
I don't, but I know Sarah does.
Okay. Well, that's good.
I guess I should set a timer here.
Yeah, do 8 minutes, I guess.
Yeah. So we got quite the group. We got Spencer yawning and all over the place like this, and you got just the top of Allison's head.
She's been pretty great though.
She is. She's really great. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, these are free worldwide sessions. It'd be great to have a project in Iceland. Say, hey, I'm familiar with you guys. I'll come over.
I'll go to Iceland.
I was just there.
Was it really beautiful?
It was great. It was, yeah, I mean, amazing. It's quite different. Very, very, very expensive.
Yeah, that's what I've heard.
Very expensive.
Now, did you guys just go there for fun?
We stopped on the way over to Germany for the secondary leadership.
That's right. I remember that now. Do I sound like I'm rambling? I feel like I'm rambling.
No, and I was just mentally thinking, like, this stuff's it's dry content. You're not doing anything wrong with it. It's just dry content. You're examining a document, so I wonder if it's just, and we talked about this already, it's really not conducive to this kind of work.
Well, I mean, I think it was interesting that Spencer surfaced that idea that just looking at that document, if you don't have some guidance on how to actually read it, you don't know what to do with it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and I wish kind of when I was done with my spiel about the parts of the document, I'd given them time to ask questions or.
You'll get a lot from Allison. If it weren't for the technology, she'd be asking you lots and lots of questions.
Yeah, well, we can encourage her to follow up via email.
Time-wise, I think we're okay, even though we don't have a lot of participation. I mean, they've been adding, but
The colors on my boxes are in the wrong order.
switch us.
Orange one is supposed to be in the middle.
Got 5 minutes.
Oh, I'm tired.
You don't want to switch them?
No, it's fine. I mean, we did this order too. Like we first talked about content and then practice and then cross-cutting concept, but in the document itself there.
I think was that part of what Rachel was talking about? Sorry, Rachel was talking about that our order was different. I think it was somewhere else though.
I don't know. Sometimes I get confused. Oh, I try my hardest not to yawn on the screen too. Where are these recordings being archived?
So I record locally on my machine, and then I post them into Dana Direct with the slides and stuff. And I post usually the chats if there's a lot of significance to that, but so far there hasn't been. It's been mostly private messages.
Yeah. So at the end of this, I think I have the most recent version of the PowerPoint because I made a couple of minor changes right before we started today.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll PDF it and send it to you.
Okay.
Are you sending it to people who do the survey? How is that working?
Sarah does that. So if you want to just send it to her, that's fine.
Okay.
But if you include me, that's great too.
Okay. which group was Tina in? Was Barbara and Spencer?
Tina was with Barbara and Spencer, so I think it's okay. That group's fine.
Yeah. I like this graphic.
Those good old fancy PowerPoint. What are those called? Can't remember.
I'm making my PowerPoint for, I told you I'm defending my proposal next week.
Yeah, yeah.
And I started making it, and I started putting it in a UT Dana Center template. I was like, wait a minute.
When are you hoping to defend everything by?
August.
You're hoping to defend your dissertation by August?
Mm-hmm. The research is already all done.
What is it on?
So I did a Instructional Leadership Academy in Florida with some instructional coaches. So I'm doing a phenomenological, it's a qual study.
Okay.
So, you know, they've already done, there's one more, it's not a survey. They're going to fill out a narrative questionnaire for me.
Okay.
I've been practicing saying phenomenological.
Phenomenological. Yep.
I keep hearing the Muppets phenomena.
All right, they got a minute left. I've closed the room, so they'll be back in less than 52 seconds.
Okay. They must be really talking. I've got to turn off box notifications because I get notified every time someone downloads something. All right, are we all back? Yeah, we are all back. So I don't see any hands up. So, all right. Oh, Spencer, your hand's up first, so we'll let you go first. So tell us a little bit about what you guys talked about in relation to these 3 questions here.
It was more like me trying to figure it out still. So looking at it, so I just pulled up some TEKS real quick, the Texas standards, and was looking at them. And so the orange box looks kind of reminiscent, but I'm having a hard time understanding. Basically, I got derailed on the first question. How is it different? I mean, it's obvious how it's different because it's talking about planning investigation, but I'm trying to, on the second ones, and mainly the green one, how is it a catalyst for change in student achievement? I don't know that I could answer that because I'm just trying to process what it means. And if it's some of the stuff without seeing it in practice, it seems like it's a distinction without a difference. And so like plan and investigation. So when I read plan and investigation to provide evidence that the change in object motion, so plan and investigation provide when I read that, I think, okay, so they design an experiment that will provide evidence, but does that mean that they're actually running it and they're setting it up? And what if their experimentation doesn't provide evidence? And then like designing an experiment is not enough to get to actual scientific understanding. So I'm having a hard time understanding. I don't know how to answer any of those questions is my problem. So
Well, that's okay. Remember, we said at the very beginning, if your answer is I don't know, that is perfectly okay,
Oh,
right?
I'm okay with it. Yeah.
Yeah. So we're all here together to kind of sort that out. So I think a lot of people initially probably do make comparisons to their traditional standards that they've been used to, right? So we just looked at one standard that talked about planning and investigation, right? There are many other standards that have students go to different levels, right? With different types of content, different practices, and different cross-cutting concepts. So you're going to see a wide range of what students have to do to demonstrate their understanding, right? So at this particular level, for this content, the writers believed that simply planning an investigation that would provide sufficient evidence would be what students needed to do to show that they understood. Now, remember we said that these standards are a logical progression, right? So as they get deeper with this content at a higher grade level, they're likely going to do just what you said, Spencer, and go ahead and carry out that best investigation and think about what happens if it doesn't work. What adjustments do they have to make? Barbara, you were in Spencer's group, right? Do you have any additional comments to add to that conversation?
No, actually, it gets to that same point of when we start looking at performance expectations, it communicates to me a different message than we have with our traditional standards, because it really does stress the fact that students are expected to perform and demonstrate their learning in different ways. And I think the holistic look at the standards gives you a much broader view. I think you kind of covered it when you said, when you look at all the standards across the board, you go all the way from planning an investigation to planning and carrying out an investigation to designing a process or identifying a solution. So that's basically what we're saying is when we look at that orange box, students are supposed to learn this content so that they can do something with it. And it's the so that they can do something with it piece that's in the performance expectation, rather than simply knowledge for the sake of knowledge. It's knowledge that you can then put into action. And that's how I think it's a catalyst for student achievement. We can no longer, under any pretense, have students in classrooms who are simply sitting and getting. In other words, we tell them this and we tell them that, and every now and then they get a chance to do a quick experiment to say that we're having inquiry, that there's no way that we can actually justify that with the standards that are saying students have to perform in certain ways if we're saying that they are actually learning the way that we're saying that they should learn.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and so to kind of build on that and go back to Spencer's point, right? So we just looked at, again, one standard today, right? So we need to look at these standards holistically, and how do students grow over time, right? And how do their skills grow and change over time with the practices and with the cross-cutting concepts as well. And, you know, this little 2-hour session that we've done hopefully has whet your appetite to learn more, right? And we would certainly be glad to answer questions that come up as you dig deeper into the document, Spencer. But I applaud you for saying, you know, this doesn't make sense right away, because that's most people's reaction when they first see it. I agree. Okay, the other group, who's gonna speak about, from your group, about some of the answers to these questions that you guys came up with? I don't
It's
see
need to talk.
Okay, all right, Allison.
Thank you. There were lots of reactions. Sarah was probably the calmest. Tracy wanted to, or didn't want to. I offered the idea of looking at it from the elementary level first, because that's where she's strong. For me, the colors don't matter, and they're almost distracting, because like the last speaker used the word orange. I would much prefer that they continually use the word performance or performance expectations than talking about the orange science. So keep to black and white. I'm not sure that the color helps, but the top line where I don't have it in front of me, I just have an arrow with the 3 boxes. But the top line where the performance expectation is actually written out in bold and then a small description. That is one of many. So there should be probably 10 pages like this for each standard in that particular thing on force and motion. Am I right?
Well, so remember, we only looked at one standard.
Yeah.
There are lots of other standards that cover different aspects of force and motion.
Yes, exactly. So we should be thinking in 3D, really, in that sense. We've got the page, and we'll have a bunch of pages. And we surely will not do every single thing on every page. There must be some repetition across those pages. Some cross-cutting.
The idea really is that students are not rehashing the same
Yes.
thing over and over, that they're going deeper with the particular content. And I love that you said we need to be thinking in 3D and how all of these things connect, right? So that's why on the document it provides you, so you can go back and look at what was the prior learning, what is the future learning, how is this fit in the progression of learning? And again, it's just going to take time, right? This is not something that we're going to understand overnight, right? I appreciate those comments very much. Thank you so much. All right, anybody else have a final comment they'd like to make? We're getting close on our time here. All right, so one thing that we haven't talked about, the elephant in the room for most people, right, is engineering. So just a minute and see what you have to say.
Kids are such natural applications of engineering to real world problems. My son, who's 9, is constantly engineering things. So yes, this is a natural inclination, I think, for a lot of kids. Many times he's engineering things I would rather he not engineer, but it is a natural inclination, I think, that's connected with these standards.
Spencer, I like that, like, you know, engineering is a way to solve problems, right? That's a good connection there. Tracy says real world problems. Yeah, and like Barbara, I appreciate that too, right? So the NGSS are all about accessibility, right? All students getting a better science education so that they can go on and not be part of that 64% that we saw on the graph earlier. All right, I appreciate you all today and your conversations and your interest in this topic. And one final quick reflection, I'd like to hear one thing from everybody. So as you look at this compass on the slide here, just think about one of these questions you could answer for me. So what is one new thing that you learned? What is something that you might be excited about? What is a suggestion that you might have for your colleagues going back and talking to them about the NGSS? And maybe what is something that you already knew, but maybe you're a little bit wiser about today? So if you raise your hand when you're ready, I'll call on you and you can share your thinking with the whole group. Pick any one of these questions you'd like to address. Spencer, go ahead. Go ahead.
The new one, most of my expertise is in PBL. I taught at Manor New Tech for 5 years as a science and engineering teacher, and so the integrate, like a lot of this smacks very much of project-based learning.
It does.
Learning of the application there. So kind of the connection of the NGSS with that is something, I guess, combination between new and wiser.
Thank you, Spencer. Barbara, you're ready to share as well.
Yes, I think I'm on the suggestion. I think that my suggestion for anyone who's actually thinking about using these standards, implementing these standards, or sharing them, and that is give yourself time to study them. It's going to take, I think we all recognize that they're really dense. There's a lot there. A lot of that information is there to support, but it's still a lot of information. So that I would simply say, give yourself time to realize you're going to have to study.
Yes, good idea, Barbara. Thank you so much. Right, we've just barely scratched the surface today. Yeah. Sarah, what do you have to share with the whole group?
I am excited about the scientific and engineering practices, and think about how different those activities are from how I experienced science classes growing up. And so just the idea of kids being expected to ask questions and make sense of things and construct explanations and really do hands-on work just seems inspiring to me.
It is. I agree with you. Thank you so much. Okay, Tracy.
So under the W. Weiser, I think listening to others' perspectives on this set of standards really was eye-opening for me, especially because we do a lot of work in these standards, and so it's nice to hear the perspective of someone who these are more new to. So I think it's impactful on the work that I do.
Thank you, Tracy. I agree. I think I've learned a lot from listening to your conversations today as well. Allison, would you like to share a northeast, south, or west with us?
I'm not quite sure where it fits, maybe new. In Iceland, we introduced a subject called innovation education in '99, and it's been incorporated into other curricula. And the difference between that and engineering is that the innovation is to meet a need or to be creative, whereas engineering is more to solve a particular problem, maybe. You could distribute them like that. And I will go back again to what I said earlier on about the creativity or innovation, to be able to use this science, which is well explained and carefully laid out, to plan programs that encourage children or give them the chance to be innovative or be creative, and not only reproduce something again back for us.
Yeah, thank you. I really think that the inclusion of engineering, for instance, really allows students to express that kind of creativity that you're talking about, right? And how the science and engineering fit nicely together, right? Engineering creates better tools and solutions that allow us to explore science in new ways, and then that leads to new scientific discoveries, right? That allow us to engineer better tools and solve global problems. So I love that connection. All right, so I appreciate you all again. I'm gonna turn the presentation back over to Ryan briefly and let him kind of close out the day for us.
All right, so again, we were looking at trying to explore this document and the potentials to strengthen our science education and improve equity and access. Hopefully you all saw evidence of that, even if it was just a glimmer as we examined this document. And again, we engaged in some activities that revealed the interconnected nature. I think that came out really in Allison's comment about the 3D nature of these standards. We got to look at the depth of which all the documents connect to one another. So hopefully everybody got that out of our learnings today. One thing that I'd like to add to us is that we really need your feedback as to what you thought about not only the content, but the actual delivery of the study today. And so there's a survey we'd like to ask you to fill out. It's very short, and then you'll get an email after that, or excuse me, a link at the end of that will give you access to the slides from today in case you want to review those or rethink about some of those as well. So Shelley's going to add that to the chat box for us too. So if you'd like to click on that as an easy link, it doesn't take long. It actually is very short. Thank you there, Shelley. And then if you get into working with some of your fellow teachers or deeper into your districts and would like to work at all with us here at the Dana Center, here's the way that we were able to get contacted. We do lots of development around math and science, and certainly are available to either conduct face-to-face development
All right,
with you.
I think Ryan is frozen. Can you guys, Barbara, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Ryan, I think we lost you a minute.
Oh, man, I was saying some really good stuff too. But what I was trying to say was, if there's any way that we can help you in your study of math or science standards, please give us an email, or you can contact us directly at the Dana Center, and keep an eye out for some of our really interesting tweets and sharing of information on Twitter there. So thank you all very much for your attendance today, and we really appreciate all your work and feedback as well.
Thank you again. Yeah, Sarah will send you guys the slides once you've completed the survey. And again, we appreciate you so much, and we hope to hear from you again.
Thank you. Yes. Allison, I was just in Iceland in February, so.
Storm at the moment.
Oh, okay.
Traditionally, we get a winter storm at Easter, and apparently that's what they've been having.
Yeah, I was there when y'all got the big 51 centimeters of snow overnight.
Yes.
That was quite an adventure.
It was a photographic adventure, especially.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Very nice.
I would have loved to see that.
I will send you through the center a few pictures and stuff. Yeah.
That would be great.
Absolutely, yeah.
It would be wonderful.
Got a few photos myself.
Yeah. Well, they definitely room for, they create opportunities for discussion for some of the standards.
Yes. It's especially surprising when you're a traveler and you don't have access to the weather forecast. So when you go to sleep and there's no snow on the ground, and you wake up and there's a lot of snow on the ground, and you weren't part of the people raiding the grocery stores and stuff preparing for it, you're going, oh, I don't know where that came from.
Well, I have a 1.5 minute video of our dog trying to get its ball out of the snow, and she didn't give up. She eventually got it.
All right. It's a true Icelandic dog then. That's what I remember about the people there. Y'all don't give up.
But thank you all very much. And Sarah for the organizing it.
No. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Bye. Nice meeting
Bye-bye.
everyone.
Bye.
All right. I thought I'd help her out a little bit.